So hello, welcome to our podcast on Parasite. My name is Ahzaria Garris.
Hi, my name is Rainey Small.
Hi, my name is Viaire Robinson.
My name is Chrisleen Herard.
Hello, my name is Zyah Bacchues.
I was focusing on psychological impact. So for this film, I noticed that there were two major themes going around, and that was classism and hope. So for classism, there was obviously like the major difference between the Kim family and the Park family with, how they were living. But what I found really interesting about classism was how the less fortunate kind of like treated each other. And one scene that really stuck out to me was the scene where the Kim mother found the original housekeeper's husband living in the basement, and the housekeeper was, pleading with her to not tell the Park family, and she was like, "Don't call me sis," and all that. And she was kind of turning her nose up at the situation. And I thought that was really ironic because, they're kind of in the same boat when you think about it. And it's just goes to show how if you get like a little taste of like a different lifestyle, how easily you could switch and like switch up, sorry. And I just thought that was very interesting. And then with the Parks, it was obvious that they had like no regard for anybody else. They're kind of like in their own bubble. And you can definitely see that in the ending scene where the father was like pleading with the Kim father to like pass him the keys so they could go to the hospital while his daughter was literally dying in his hands. And I just thought that was a very powerful scene. And like you could definitely tell the difference between the poor and the rich. And so that was like classism. For hope, I noticed like The Rock was a major thing that Kevin, when he brought that home, as soon as he brought it home, he got this new job and he was able to like bring his family on with it. And so that rock really did symbolize hope, and it like looked like they were headed for a better future and everything until, they weren't. And I think that the very last scene was something that really stuck with me because that montage that he had when he thought he was going to buy the house so he could save his dad. At first, I was honestly like, there's no way that he bought this house. I didn't know if it was real or not. I was like, there's just no way. And then we kind of just snapped back to reality, and Kevin is right back where he started in the beginning of the movie. And I lost hope. And I feel like the director did that purposely to be like, no matter how hard you think about it, there's like kind of no way that the Kim family is going to be able to buy that house. And like hope is kind of gone. And I think that's when Kevin put the rock back in the river, that kind of symbolized it because he's kind of letting go of that hope. And I thought that was a very powerful scene, a very heartbreaking scene. But yes.
To tie into that, I can discuss the script, and a few parts highlights the classism, and I would say the battle between the poor, in a sense. That's what I got from some of the scripts. So I noticed that a lot of the lines that Mr. Park was saying, and also the song, they mentioned the smell of the lower class. So Mr. Park referred to it as old radish, and he said that it was the smell of those who rode the subway, and typically that's those who rely on public transportation and usually the lower class. And about that part, the family of Kim Jong and the dad and the mom, they all thought that they were referring to their soap and their washing detergent smell, which is things of hygiene, but in actuality, the song was referring to their funk. Also, right before Mr. Park was stabbed, Gonse, which is the man who was under the house, he yelled respect in English right before he was stabbed. And I think he said that in English because we highly value respect, especially respecting those who are rich and come from status. And ironically, that's when Mr. Park disrespected him and held his nose, saying that he stunk. And yeah, that's when the dad stabbed him. Also, when they were all in the house, Kim Jong kept yelling, "What about us?" when her dad was worried about the driver Yoon. And I was also worried about him and the previous housemaid. I was worrying about if they also were able to find new jobs and take care of themselves, because they also may have been possibly poor. And that's when the battle of the poor came into play, and also when they were under the house. And like you already said, Rainey, when Chung Suk told Moon Gwang not to call her sis, but also a few scenes later, Mrs. Park called her sis, but there was no resistance. She didn't tell her, "Don't call me sis," and that's because she wanted to relate to the rich and not relate to the poor.
Yeah, I feel like the scene under the basement was pretty ironic. And it kind of shows that for some people, like when they kind of get an inch of a rich life, they take it to the head sometimes and they don't want to associate with, their actual background. And it was crazy how like it kind of switched up so fast once the original housekeeper realized that her family was there as well. And it kind of made me frustrated because I felt like they could have worked a deal out instead of trying to like throw each other under the bus. But it's kind of crazy that they were using resources from the rich family that they were working for. And then I also thought that the part where the dad from the King family, when he stabbed the other father, I thought that was powerful as well because he did it after he held up his nose. And I felt like it was just kind of like dumb for him to still worry about his smell when his child is having a seizure and he's trying to take him to the hospital. But he still took that time to kind of like acknowledge his smell and that he was poor. And that was just kind of it for the dad. Definitely like you could see their frustrations with just living that poor lifestyle and having to work for someone who got it easy.
I would also like to add that this the last part, Mr. Park, he often mentioned crossing the line, and that could mean two things, meaning crossing the socioeconomic line, the poor going into the rich lifestyle and mingling with them, and then also the employer respecting the employer boundaries. So
Yeah, as you guys talk about the battle of the lower class and how they didn't work together, I feel like a big portion of that had to do with they were just so hell bent on raising their socioeconomic status that they didn't care about like who was affected as long as they were okay. And I feel like that kind of is a symbolism of greed a little bit. Like they got a little bit of what they wanted and they stopped at nothing to make sure they got more and more and more and more, as much as they could, without having anybody interfere. And as soon as someone else did interfere who was also in need of help, they didn't extend that helping hand. They kind of just like chopped it off so that they could no longer reach for what this other person had. I was looking into the cast, and I personally think that everyone played their role really well. I think Park's wife, she was great. She was like the perfect representation of a stay-at-home mom who like didn't have to do much, doesn't really take care of her kids, but like if a problem arises, like she'll do anything to fix it. She'll throw money at it, like for her daughter's tutor. And when the sister had came in saying that her son had like a psychological problem and maybe some schizophrenia, so her rates would be higher, the mom was like so worried about fixing her son that she would pay any amount for it. And I also think that Mr. Park, he did well with his role of just like being the wealthy breadwinner, not really caring as long as everything was in order, everything was how he liked it. His image wasn't tainted at all, or there wasn't any problems. And the dad, Kim, I don't know. He was a good dad, but yeah, I don't know what to say about him too much, but I think overall the casting was really good.
I agree. Um, and I can go into music. I really appreciated the soundtrack of Parasite because I feel like it kind of like drew the audience towards like to kind of side with the Kim family, but also because like I don't know, it to me it sounded like mostly classical music. Like I wasn't really able to kind of decipher, but in my opinion, like when I think of classical music, I think of like higher class, like just to begin with. But I feel like the soundtrack of this movie did like a really good job of kind of reflecting the overall like mood of the film, like with a few keynote pieces. I think the original piece I think is called Opening. It was a solo piece, and like just the way like it begins with like initial beautiful and bright tones, and then it casually shifts into a gloomful key. I feel like that just foreshadows the overall like tone of the movie, the shift of the movie that we're gonna see. Another one that I found like significant was the piano tune On the Way to the Rich House, which played while Kimberly walked to the Parks family mansion to get the job as the tutor. Um, it was like it kind of had an eerie sound to it, which kind of helped to convey Kim's nervousness and also kind of foreshadow like what's coming in the movie. Another one was the montage when they actually realized that they could get the mom to switch with the housekeeper, or I guess take the housekeeper out by her allergy. That tune was called The Belt of Faith, which was like 6 or 7 minutes long. And I think it really helped to tie together nicely the plan that this family had devised. And I feel like that was the ending of the first act, which really kind of tied together like how the movie is going to shift. And I think another one was the camping song that played while the Parks family was celebrating their son's birthday. It was like a slow kind of like opera song, which kind of had a peaceful tone to it, but also kind of let you know that there was impending doom. And there's like a number of these throughout the movie that we can hear.
Yeah, I actually really liked
Sorry.
the soundtrack was mostly or only classical music, and I feel like it really set the tones for like the different scenes, the shift in the movie, like you said, that was about to come up, and the intensity of some of the scenes.
Yeah, I definitely felt the intensity, especially when they were trying to hide from the Park family when they were on their way back from the camping. And I felt like they was doing too much, like drinking their stuff and breaking the glasses. I don't know how. I guess they were too bitch to even notice. But I guess with that being said, I'll switch over to settings and costumes. And so in the beginning of the movie, they're giving you hints that the Kim family is poor. Their house is cluttered. They have dirty walls, roaches. Their phone is off. Their Wi-Fi is off. They're wearing tank tops and shorts. And then you can notice this difference, especially when their friend Min comes in and he's from college and he's dressed nice and he enters the house and he steps on something. And then you see that from his friend, or I forgot his name, from the Kim family, the boy, he's embarrassed of his house and didn't want him to come inside. And then when you switch over to the Park family, the mom was first seen wearing white. She was holding the white poofy dog that's kind of, you see a lot with like rich people sometimes. And then their overall environment is just like more open space, more clear, less cluttered. There's more sun, there's more land showing, and overall more room. They have 3 dogs and a maid, so you can see the big difference between the Kim family's smaller and cluttered, physically dirty house, and their like clear space, large, and more kind of clean house. And then I even noticed with the housekeeper as well, when she was working in the house, the original housekeeper, she was dressed nice before in like kind of suit dresses. And then when she was coming back after being fired to go see her husband, her face was bloody and she had darker clothing. And I was also going to speak on like how the basement looked. It was also overall just dark, cluttered, and creepy and hollow. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
I feel like one thing that I just to piggyback off of like their houses, I think one thing that I also noticed was the the layout of their houses actually kind of went along with their social status. Like the Parks had like this big mansion. The Kim family had like a basement kind of like apartment style, and then the housekeepers, like her husband actually lived in like the basement, like the lowest part of the Kim's family house, which kind of just like goes along with the ranks in social class, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that, the how it was laid out, and then the lighting in there. I feel like in the Park house, there was always like a nice amount of light every time, you know, you entered and walked up the steps. The light bulb would turn on after you go up each step, and it was just always bright. But at the Kim family house, it was just more dim. I don't want to say it was completely dark. It was just dim all of the time. And in the basement, it was completely dark. I feel like there was only one light in the basement.
Also, the scene where they were in the gym after being displaced, when they were going through the pile of clothing, I was wondering if they were going to be able to keep up that quote unquote nice appearance with dressing nice and suits and things like that, even for the party. And surprisingly, they were able to find some clothes that somewhat matched up to the clothing of the rich, even though they were, in a gym full of many displaced lower class people.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing, especially with the smell. But so the overall question, I guess, with this movie is how it helped us understand more about globalism and class differences. And I guess one thing I would say is that it just showed me like the lengths that people who come from a poorer lifestyle are willing to go through to live a life of a rich person or just live a rich life. And you can see how much work that they had to go through versus the Park family. They're kind of just carefree, living life. Everything's simple. They're not really worried about anything versus the Kim family. They're literally going through so much just to get a job that pays decent. So we could really see up to the point where the mother of the Kim family almost killed the original housekeeper. So I just felt like you could see like, just the desperation in their actions just to live the simple life that the Park family was living.
Yeah, I totally agree. The desperation of the Kim family versus the blissful ignorance of the Park family, because they're content and, they live a nice life. They don't really have to worry about too much. And they don't worry about too much or anybody else's struggle. They throw money where they need to throw money, and that's it.
Yes, I would highlight the class difference between their mannerisms and attitude towards their fellow peers who are in their class. So the rich, like you all are saying, they were united, happy, enjoying each other, telling each other, yeah, you don't have to bring presents, just your presence is enough, and things like that. They were all in harmony with each other. Versus the lower class, it was every man for themselves. I can't be nice to you. And that was even highlighted by the mother who said, if I was as rich as her, I will also be nice, even nicer. So it's that sense of when you're a lower class, you can't afford to be nice. You have to have that aggressiveness, that griminess in order to survive in the world, in order to survive in society, because you have to take if it's not necessarily in a position for you to get it in access or get it easily.
I totally agree with what you just said, and I think you said it perfectly.
So real quick for camera work and editing, I did notice in one scene, the scene where with the rain and the Kim's family home was flooded, and you could see the parallels between how the Kims were like struggling to take everything that they could like salvage in their completely ruined home, and then how the Parks were just sleeping blissfully, and the camera kept shifting like from the Parks to the Kims, and I thought that that was again touching on classism in a very powerful scene.
I would say what I noticed was the angles from high to low when the Kim's family under the basement were in the basement. They always shot the view looking up in a sort of angle. Even when the guy was urinating near their house, they always shot at an up angle towards the window, which showed more light and things like that. And then also when the whole alley flooded and everyone was struggling to get their things out, it was a very high angle. It was looking down on them, meaning, looking down on the lower class. So that was one of the things I noticed.
I didn't even realize that high and low angle that you're talking about.
Yeah, it was kind of dramatized to me, so that's why I noticed.
Overall, how do you guys rate the movie out of 10?
I'd definitely give it like a 9, 9.5. It was definitely up there.
I think I'm gonna give it a 10.
Yeah, I'll definitely give it a 10. Definitely probably top 10 movies for me now.
I'll give it a 10.
Agreed. Spot on movie. Perfect in every.
Well, thank you for listening to our podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.